We tend to like the things, or we'd like to be able to resell a lot of things, but sometimes our public doesn't want to buy certain things. So what we found sells the best are either new items, or fairly new, current, or vintage, really old kinds of things. It seems to be that in the 50s and 60s, some of them, some of the things that were built just weren't very well done, so nobody wants those anymore. Donors can drop off their donations Monday through Saturday, so we are open every day but Sunday for drop-off. We are only open Wednesday through Saturday for shopping, and those hours are on the back of the brochure that was in the middle of your packet there. We also can pick up your donation if you have things that you'd like us to come. We have a truck and some guys that will come and help with that. One of the other things we do is we do some what we call harvesting. If a house is going to be demolished, and it seems like a lot of churches and schools need more parking, and so they're tearing down houses all the time, and we'll get calls and we'll go in and take out doors and light fixtures, maybe register covers, things like that, and save those items, and then those will be available in the store for sale. So sometimes people come in looking for those old things, and we have them in bunches, like we'll have them all, a lot of them, and then we won't have any until we do another harvesting, that kind of thing. And sometimes we'll take wood flooring and those kind of items as well. We do give receipts for tax purposes, so if you give us a donation, it's just like, if you went to Salvation Army or Goodwill or one of those places, you'll get a receipt for that donation. And our prices, we shoot for prices to be 25 to 50% of retail. If it's a new item, it might be 50% of retail price, and if it's an older item, if it's used, then we shoot for 25% of retail. We are open. I mentioned the hours in the brochure. Our late night is Wednesday night, so if evening is a night that, or is a time that's good for you, Wednesday would be your night to try us out. And finally, one of my favorite parts of this whole venture has been the joy of working with volunteers. And I think when we started the process of looking at doing a ReStore, we knew we would have volunteers, but we didn't know what a pleasure that would be every day to work side by side with people who come in just because it's fun, just because they think it's a neat thing to do. So we have about 50 volunteers who come in on a regular weekly basis. Some come in once a week, some come twice a week, some come on afternoons, some come mornings, and we're pretty flexible about when we allow volunteers to come. But they're some of the coolest people that I've ever had the chance to meet, and they take care of each other. They're just super nice people. Another thing, like when we first started, it was interesting because we had the opportunity to take community service volunteers, and a lot of times those would be kids who got into a little trouble, usually young men. And we would, they'd be late teens or early 20s, and they'd come in and they had done something wrong. They're kind of hanging their heads, and we're kind of older, and they didn't know if they fit in. But pretty soon we figured out, they're strong. They can lift a lot of stuff, and we're happy to see them. Next time they come in, we're a little more happy to see them, and we start being really appreciative of the things that they have to offer us, besides which they're getting to work side by side with some of these cool, wonderful volunteers. So they've got role models which they might not have had in their other dealings in the world. And so that was really a cool side benefit that we had, to see that little interactions going on too. So we do have a lot of retirees, a few community service folks, a lot of people that might be between jobs, but they work really hard, they enjoy each other, and they enjoy what we do in supporting the missions that we're involved in. So it's a pleasure to be a part of that. Every day's like Christmas. You never know what's coming in, which is another kind of fun thing about what we do. You need to be flexible because you never know when you're going to have to make space for, a cabinet set or something like that. So I would invite you to come as a shopper, or consider volunteering if you've got time, or if you know somebody else, recruit them. Or if you have things in your house that you'd like us to come pick up, or would like to clear out some space, please give us consideration for your donation as well. At this point, I'd like to ask if there are any questions. I could just go on and on, but I'd really rather talk about the things you want to know about. Yes.
Where are you located, first of all? Secondly, where is the house located that's going to be dedicated next week?
Both questions, very good ones. The Habitat ReStore is located on Mississippi Avenue in Davenport, and if you take that middle brochure, that's the ReStore brochure, I think there's a map on the back of that. But we're north of Kimberly Road between Eastern and Bridge Street. So right by Doll Ford, if any of you are familiar, that's kind of a landmark. We're on the east edge. Mississippi runs on the east edge of Doll Ford. So that's where it is. And then the address of the house is 6th Street in Davenport. I don't know the exact address. It's in my planner, and I don't think I brought that in with me.
It's close to the Twinkie factory?
Yes, it's right sort of behind what used to be the Hostess factory in Davenport on River Drive.
No, east end. It's east side. Yeah.
The Wonder Bread, I know.
Yeah. And that should be listed on the Habitat website if I can't get that, but I'll try to get that for you before I leave. And that's open to the public. The dedications and groundbreakings are open to the public. You may have seen them on the TV, you know, sometimes the news media will show up. But I will tell you, the dedications particularly are quite moving experiences, because here are some people who are getting houses probably for the first time. Maybe anyone in their family has gotten a house. And so it's pretty, and they've worked hard for that, so it's kind of a neat time. Yes, sir.
How many hours of sweat equity, question one, and also about how long does it take for most of the Habitat for Humanity homes to be built, and size-wise, about what size are they?
Okay, I'm gonna take some, this is ballpark ideas, but I think the number of sweat equity hours is 125 per person before they'll start. So per adult in the family. So if it's a couple with children, it'll be 250 hours before they even start. Now, once they've started building that house, I know they have to do a certain number every month, and I don't know what that number is. And I know about the first one because this is another kind of pleasure that we have as a ReStore. The partner families, a lot of times, will work in the ReStore because their house isn't started, it might be winter, there might not be other houses even in process. So we get to meet the families that are going to be the beneficiary of the work that we do at the ReStore. So that's kind of neat for us. But that's another good question. If I can get that information for how many hours total, but I don't have that on the top of my head. So that was two. What was the last question? Oh, how long it takes to build a house in the Quad City? Several months, and it really varies. One of the things that they have going right now, a lot of people like to come and they like to pound the nails and build the walls, and that's a fun part. But then that's the part that goes faster, and so I don't know, any of you who are familiar with construction, depending on when you started, it could take a lot longer and things like that. I know this year a group came in from somewhere else and worked at a church, and I don't remember what church it is. On a Sunday afternoon, they built enough walls for 4 Habitat houses. Boom, you know, and an afternoon they had 4 houses worth of walls, and they stacked those in the warehouse, and then they'll go out and put those out. So obviously those houses will go up a lot faster than the ones where, you know, you get 25 volunteers on a Saturday and then you try to build. So it does vary. I know the most famous house in the Quad Cities built by Habitat, you probably had heard, was one built, why am I not thinking of the guy's name? Travis Hearn, thank you. The football player from Rock Island, and that went up in a day. But there was a ton of work gone into that. And then also the women's builds, they tend to be kind of faster because it's a concerted effort of, you know, women or a group of people like that. But typically it takes, I would say, 6 to 8 months to get a house from the beginning to the end. Yes.
Cindy, how are people selected to become recipients of these homes?
That's a good question too. There are a number of criteria. One of the criteria is financial to be selected, and if you didn't hear the question, it's how were partner families chosen. one of them is financial, so there has to be a need. They have to demonstrate that they have need, but they have to demonstrate that they can pay for the house too. So they have to have employment and they have to make a certain amount, or else, you know, that wouldn't qualify them. So, but if they make too much, then they don't have the need. They also go in, there's a group of people who volunteer for Habitat who goes in and they interview the families. And they go do a visit at the house, at the place where the people are already living. And they find out, okay, do they have, you know, 5 kids in one bedroom? Do they have, you know, boys and girls together after a certain age? You know, those kinds of things. So they have that kind of situation also that goes into consideration. What are the conditions that these people are living in now? And their ability to pay back the house and their ability to partner. Sometimes the person who's getting the house will have some kind of physical disability. And so they often will have people at their church or their people, you know, other family members will help them with some of that sweat equity because they're not able physically to do it. So there's a guy on the Habitat board, and he's actually a banker and he does mortgages, so he's really good about figuring out fairly, you know, how someone qualifies or not, doesn't qualify. But he has a committee that works with him. And it's interesting because when people think of volunteering for Habitat, you think of the people out there, you know, driving the nails in the boards. But for every person that's doing that, they have a need for many people behind the hammer, they call it, because you need people to interview these families. You need people then to work with the families because they try to nurture the family along and make sure that they're going to be successful and teach them things that homeowners know that maybe they've never been taught because they didn't grow up in a house like that. So I think most of it is the need and then the financial ability to pay back. That answers your question. Yes?
Yeah, did I understand you to say like something large that you would actually come and pick it up?
Yes.
For a donation?
And, you know, we only like to pick up like on a ground level or from a garage or something like that. You know, we've done all the clawfoot bathtubs from the second story that I think we're going to do. Somebody else had a question? Yes.
Are all the blueprints basically the same, or do you take into consideration the needs of the family?
No, they are different. They have a number of them. And I don't know how many that is, but that they typically use. And they try to make the outsides look different, so it's not a cookie cutter kind of house. But some families will need a bedroom in the basement, for instance. Some families will need more bedrooms, and so they take that into consideration. And with the Travis Hearn house, that was built for someone who had serious disabilities. And the neat thing about that was when Travis died, his trust gave that house back to Habitat. And Habitat held it for a number of months, if not longer, and they were trying to find the right partner family to move into that house. And they ended up with a woman whose daughter, I believe, has cerebral palsy or spina bifida or something pretty serious. And she was carrying this young girl up and down a flight of stairs in and out with a wheelchair, and you know, and it had a really bad situation. But then she was able to get the Travis Hearn house, and that's worked out beautifully for her. So they do take the family and try to decide, you know, what that family needs. Yes.